Chris Mellon names names. That's right, he names names of potential UFO control group members and demands they come forward. This is one of the potential consequences of the movie Age of Disclosure. This thing could really have legs and could be important. So let's talk about it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, to start with, members of Congress had to watch this thing. From J. Alberto, quoting from the New York Times, and it's behind a paywall, so I'm not showing you that article. Members of Congress in the Capitol watched the documentary where 34 high-ranking U.S. officials revealed the recovery of non-human craft and biological remains from non-human intelligences regarding UAP. So yeah, members of Congress actually got together and watched Age of Disclosure. Of course, they were probably all in it, the people that watched it. I don't know if this got outside of that demographic, but either way, really cool. Members of Congress are actually in the documentary, pushing UFO disclosure, telling what they can of the truth, and getting together in Congress to actually watch it. So that's very cool that this is a movie being taken very seriously. Okay, now this is really interesting. Chris Mellon talking about the Air Force and their complicity in the UFO control group and in the cover-up, and of course they are. But what's really interesting is that, after just, laying them to the daisies here, he also names names and pushes for these guys to come forward. But let's hear exactly why he feels that the Air Force is indeed so complicit.
Why is it that Air Force F-22s, despite having greatly superior sensors, did not report UAP operating in DoD training areas off the East Coast when Navy F-18s were routinely detecting and reporting UAP on the same ranges? Why is it the USS Princeton radar data from the Nimitz case disappeared after U.S. Air Force officers visited the ship? In fact, there are many similar cases where Navy data was removed by U.S. Air Force personnel. Similarly, why are the Nimitz deck logs missing for precisely the period of Princeton UAP tracking back in 2004? Why is it the Air Force never reports UAP detected by its strategic radar systems? These solid-state phased array radars are believed to be the most powerful emitters on the planet. Yet despite their massive range and constant coverage, even when UAP are detected operating for days directly in front of these powerful emitters, the Air Force fails to issue any UAP reports. Why is it that none of the innumerable NORAD UAP intercept cases from recent decades were submitted with the 2021 UAP report to Congress, including the famous UAP case over the Bush Ranch in Texas, where F-16 pilots were made to sign NDAs by the Air Force? As recently as last year, the Air Force was still refusing to provide NORAD UAP intercept data to DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in Congress. Why are there no reports of UAP in space, despite a massive U.S. Air Force space surveillance capability? Why is it that the Air Force seized Navy sonar data obtained after an encounter by a U.S. nuclear submarine with an underwater UAP? In sum, I believe the Air Force is treating Congress contemptuously when it comes to dodging formal congressional requests for Air Force UAP data.
Yeah, well, of course they are. The Air Force has been in this for a long time, since the beginning, since before they were actually a separate branch of the military. They're the Area 51 guys, of course. So, yeah, the Air Force is deep in the UFO control group, maybe even a dominant part of the UFO control group, at least when it comes to the public side of things. And by public, I mean the government side of things versus, the private side, the Lockheed and Boeing guys. There's different factions and different wings, fiefdoms, as David Grusch has said. But the Air Force is a huge part of whatever the hell is going on. Really fascinating that, the Nimitz incident isn't the first time they've taken data from the Navy to suppress this information. Apparently, that is just a thing that they do, and they have power to do that, which is really interesting. They have power over the Navy. They're higher above the Navy in the pecking order, and they can just come in and take this data and suppress this information. They also take sonar data, which is also really interesting because the underwater stuff is like the most highly classified part of the phenomenon as far as we know, which is really interesting. We know a lot of stuff that happens in the skies. I guess it's harder to deny that. But they can deny what happens under the waves, and they do, and they don't tell us what's going on. And it's all classified. And yet the Air Force can come in and take that, which I think is really interesting. But Chris Mellon goes on after this, and he names names. General Kenneth Wilsbach, Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force. He is calling these guys to testify under oath to Congressional Armed Services and Intel committees. And thank you, Red Panda Koala, for posting this. Troy E. Mink, who is the Secretary of the U.S. Air Force, Pearl S. Munt, the Executive Director of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. And of course, many people believe that the Air Force Office of Special Investigations is basically the Men in Black. They're the guys that come and, seize the data tapes and the data bricks and suppress this information. And, they can come into a Navy facility or a Navy ship and take this stuff. They have immense power. Really interesting. So he's calling on this guy to come forward. He's also calling on Don Mayerix. Yeah, get some pronounceable names, guys. Who is the Deputy Director for Science and Technology at the Central Intelligence Agency. So he is calling for these guys by name to come forward and to testify. He is naming names of the gatekeepers. He is naming names of likely prominent members of the UFO control group. Chris Mellon is an intelligence guy. He knows what's up. He's been in this game for a while. When he says stuff, there's a reason behind it. When he suggests that, Kirsten Gillibrand may have been compromised because of her family, that is a really weird hypothetical to throw out, right? He was throwing that out as a hypothetical, but a very specific hypothetical. Clearly, there's something more going on than just a hypothetical. I don't think he runs around, talking about senators being compromised lightly. And I don't think he names the names of specific individuals in the Air Force lightly. And the Deputy Director for Science and Technology at the Central Intelligence Agency. Fascinating that he is calling these people out and demanding that they testify. Will they ever? Will Congress, listen to Chris? Will these people ever be, brought forward to talk? Maybe if the UAP disclosure amendment can get passed in its robust fashion, and this review board is created with subpoena power, could they compel these guys to come forward and talk? Well, I guess we'll find out. I'm not holding my breath on that, but I thought that was super fascinating that he would go there and that he would call these people forward. Another thing that really interested me in Age of Disclosure was why David Grusch wasn't interviewed for it. Sure, they showed him, talking before Congress and so on, but he didn't have an interview with Dan Farah for the documentary. And I thought that was a really weird omission. I thought maybe they were saving that for a sequel or something. I wasn't sure quite what was going on there. Maybe they didn't have time for him because, they spent a lot of time with Lou, something like that. They didn't feel was necessary. Well, apparently there is more going on than simply that. David had a reason for not appearing, apparently.
Dave would have been a valuable addition to the movie. Why do you suppose he wasn't in it?
Well, I think he definitely chose not to be in it. I remember helping to make that connection with Dan so that they could have that conversation. I think Dave has a kind of different tactic to getting out what he knows to be true. Dave is a true whistleblower. This is not a managed message with Dave. Not that it is with the other guys, but it is at least authorized. With Dave, he really is working on a fundamental attitude that nobody has the right to hold this back. So let's go to his interview for 1 second. I helped in just trying to get him in touch with a network and a producer that would be able to hear what he had to say and treat it properly. I mean, we could have done the same, George, but President Trump doesn't watch Weaponized as far as I know. So so David Grusch talked again, and I was really glad he decided to, because he's not all over the media. I do think that he has a difference of opinion, and that's for him to talk about when it comes to this stuff. He really thinks everybody should just open up and say what they know. For example, he thinks that if Lou Elizondo was part of the legacy UFO program, that he should just say it. Go out on the limb and just say it. And so I think that's the difference of opinion. I think the film would have had Dave participate if Dave had agreed, but I think that he's just on a different path. Am I explaining that clearly?
No, you're not. But I love it. But isn't that fascinating? Dave is on a different path, and he's not going to be part of a documentary where they're not telling the complete truth. Now, I don't know how in the world you could legally tell the complete truth. I mean, they have NDAs for a reason. If you speak out, you go to prison. So I don't know exactly what David expects. But maybe I'm sure he does know something. I don't. Maybe there is a way to come out with this information. Really interesting that Jeremy Corbell is suggesting that Lou Elizondo could be part of the legacy program, part of the UFO control group. We know, Lou has been very out front and open about saying that what he has revealed publicly is only the tip of the iceberg about what he actually knows. So, Lou has said that, but he can't say what he can't say. So I don't know how David Grusch or Jeremy might expect him to be able to say otherwise until he's released from those oaths. He can't talk about it. Nobody can, unless you want to go to prison or get whacked, which people are reluctant to do. So, it is what it is, but let me know if you think Lou Elizondo could be part of the UFO control group. I think a lot of these guys, Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, a lot of these guys are read in to programs at a deeper level than they've publicly revealed. And they'll hint at that. They'll say, yeah, we've been read into some stuff that we can't talk about. And Lou has talked about that. So absolutely, I do think they are involved at a deeper level than what we know about. How deep does that go? Should they be more open about it? Well, I wish that they would. We all do. But I understand that they can't. So I'm really interested to hear David Grusch's take on that. I hope he comes forward talking about this, because I'd be really, really interested to see exactly what he means by that and what he expects could be possible. But meanwhile, Stephen Greer is not happy about any of it. He says, okay, Grok is trying to tell me something. Go away, Grok. From Stephen Greer, must watch Dr. Greer's new podcast, Age of Deception. Love you, Greer. New podcast, Age of Deception, where he reviews the fraud of the Age of Disclosure film. Where is the discussion that we are shooting down ET craft? We are the threat, not the ETs. This film is setting us up for war in space. Beware. All right, well, there you go. So Stephen Greer saying it's a fraud. It's pushing the threat narrative. And indeed, the beings, they're not the threat. We're the threat. And, I kind of half agree with him there. I don't think the beings are necessarily a threat to us. There's good elements of the phenomenon and more negative elements of the phenomenon that may be more of a threat on an individual basis, or even an existential basis in a way. But yeah, they're not seemingly coming here to wipe us out. And they may have indeed created us, and they're still tinkering with us potentially. So, yeah, I mean, I think, so that's where the existential stuff comes in. So, I mean, who knows what the ultimate game plan is? We don't know. I don't like the threat narrative. I think that really does a disservice to disclosure when it does happen, because so much of this stuff is consciousness related. And when you see a UFO, you're a co-creator, often, not always, but you're a co-creator of that experience. You're interacting with something that's interacting back with you. I've experienced that. I know a lot of you have. And if you go into that with a fear mentality, oh, I'm scared of the phenomenon, it's a threat, you're probably more likely to have a negative experience. So I think it's really not a good idea to go into this with a threat narrative. I think that Greer is right about that. I understand, however, why the government would, want to be prepared in case there was a threat, and that is their job. But I don't think they should. That should be behind the scenes. They shouldn't be leading with that. That shouldn't be part of the disclosure initiative, right? Say, oh, the phenomenon is real. This is what's going on. And quietly, they have a plan B in case something doesn't work out. But don't make that a big part of the public disclosure process, is my take, for those reasons, because I want us to have a positive disclosure when it does happen, and a good relationship with the phenomenon, which, not going to happen if we're scared of it, I don't think. So I partially agree with him here, but calling the documentary a fraud really reeks of his ego, and so much of the documentary, Age of Disclosure, was about Lou Elizondo and how important he is in all of this, and he is, and Greer can't stand it, and I think it's hilarious. But Greer has done a lot of good too, so I have very mixed feelings on Greer, but I thought that was funny. So let me know what you think about the age of disclosure versus the age of deception. Let me know what you think about David Grusch not being involved in the age of disclosure, and what that might all be about. Let me know what you think about Chris Mellon naming names. Let me know what you think about it all in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, grab a coffee mug in the merch store or become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, plenty of other videos on the channel. I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.